After making Dracula in 1931, Universal Pictures would make several sequels, such as 1936's Dracula's Daughter and 1943's Son of Dracula. After this, the series would evolve into the Monster Mash movies, which included many of Universal's monsters together in films, usually with Dracula as the ringleader. However fun these films were, they also got to be fairly silly, with the last in the series featuring comedians Abbott and Costello. In the 1950s, movie studio Hammer Horror started up new versions of these same monsters, including new series of movies based on Frankenstein, The Mummy, and of course, Dracula. The first film, which can be referred to as either simply Dracula or The Horror of Dracula, used some of the same actors from Hammer's previous film, The Curse of Frankenstein, Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. While in that film they played Frankenstein and the Creature, respectively, in this film Cushing plays Van Helsing and Christopher Lee is Dracula. Though many feel that nobody will ever top Bela Lugosi's performance as Dracula, I actually think that Christopher Lee is better. One thing that is quite imposing about the character is that he rarely speaks. As a matter of fact, he only speaks in one scene, near the beginning, when he talks to Jonathan Harker. Throughout the rest of the film, Dracula appears and kills silently. Lee is also simply frightening to look at, and pulls off the look of Dracula rather well. Whenever he appears, usually with a clash of music, you gotta say, "Oh shit," because you know something bad's about to happen. He gets this look in his face like, not only am I going to kill you, but I'm going to enjoy it. The film shares some similarities with previous versions of Dracula, but it's really its own creature. Jonathan Harker is a minor character again, but in this one he's killed off fairly quickly. He arrives at Dracula's castle, but seems to already know that Dracula is a vampire and must be destroyed. He manages to destroy Dracula's wife, but the Count gets the best of him. After his death, the hunt is taken up by Van Helsing, who attempts to protect Jonathan's loved ones, his girlfriend Lucy, her sister Mina, and Mina's husband Arthur from Dracula's revenge. The movie is full of striking images and gruesome special effects, the best of which is Dracula's death scene, something Hammer Horror was great at. Throughout the series, Dracula would die many gruesome and chilling deaths, each one more spectacular than the last. The Hammer films are somewhat known for their violence, which in the 50s was quite shocking. Blood spurts when vampires are staked, crosses burn into their flesh, and vampire bites leave realistic oozing wounds in a person's neck. That's not to say the film has no subtlety, as it never goes over the top. The filmmakers obviously realize that sometimes what you can't see is just as important as what you do see, and I think that the film strikes a pretty good balance. If I could make one complaint about this version of Dracula, it's that the title character himself seems weak in comparison with other versions. Dracula does not seem to have any powers, not even enhanced strength. He cannot turn into a wolf, bat, or mist, and can be harmed by sunlight. I thought the end was odd as Dracula flees into his castle when Arthur and Van Helsing approach. As daylight is coming, I thought he'd turn and fight the vampire hunters, as running into his castle would only trap him, which it did. Of course, the movie also does not stick to Bram Stoker's novel, but instead draws inspiration from it. I think this is fine, as there is enough of the story to be recognizable, and enough originality to make the film unique. I also feel that not knowing exactly how things will play out helps make the film more intense, something that the series would be great at. That being said, The Horror of Dracula is a big improvement over the Universal picture. Despite Dracula being weaker, he actually manages to be more frightening, which really says something for the filmmaking. The film would get many sequels leading into the 60s and 70s. The Brides of Dracula, Dracula Prince of Darkness, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood of Dracula, Scars of Dracula, Dracula AD 1972, The Satanic Rites of Dracula, and The Legend of the Golden Vampires, which was the only one not to feature Christopher Lee, though Peter Cushing returned as Van Helsing. Christopher Lee would even play Dracula one more time in Count Dracula in 1970, which wasn't made by Hammer and tried to follow the novel more closely. But I'm getting way off topic here. The Horror of Dracula is a great film, and a great start to a Hammer series, which I have to highly recommend. The Horror of Dracula is one of my favorites, and I have to give it a 9 out of a possible 10.